Welcome back to the Life Over 40 podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can turn your passion to and use your expertise to start your own movement. And I'm super excited about today's conversation. This is going to be perfect for those of you that are entrepreneurs, creators, or just industry experts that are wanting to learn how to go about doing this inside of your own business, but also hearing from the experience of my super amazing and talented guest. Miss Nikki Gomez. We've known each other now for a very long time, 20 years. I feel like we were little babies, kind of like fresh out of school when we first met each other. We both were professional plus size models, and she took some amazing photos of me before as well. Still to this day, some of my most amazing, like I love them when people like, oh, let me see your like some old photos. I always show when we were in Miami and we did those really cool images. So I just want to say thank you for being a yes today and being a guest.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I was wondering, I was like, is she gonna date us by saying how long? But yes, it's been 20 years. Listen, wisdom, knowledge. That's what it takes sometimes is years of dedication. So I'm happy that I've been on this journey with you and on different levels too, like modeling and photography and all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about like having friendships is like being able to see each person evolve and understanding that we as humans, we all naturally evolve. And I think it's important to be able to monitor, to be able to view someone else's evolution. And so thank you for just always, I feel like you've always been that transparent person when it
Hmm.
comes to sharing your journey. And I love that about you. And I'm just grateful that you were someone I immediately thought to ask because of how you've been showing up, but also how you've been using your own life experiences to help other women to re enter, like to even try this as a passion. Because back in the day, I feel like we used to have a lot of people say, oh, they're like, oh, you're a model. Oh, yeah, I can be a model too. And so I feel like that it would make us a little bit more nervous to even say like this is what we did because it took on a dissertation for
Mhm.
someone else, but you have now turned that into your passion. So I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, also thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. As you mentioned, I started plus size modeling 20 years ago. Well, now 21, right? Because it's 2004 I actually started. And I was fortunate enough to have a great start. And then a few years later, decided to throw my hat into photography. And I taught myself, I just happened to be working for a wholesale fashion company that there were only seven plus size designers, if you can believe it. At the
Wow.
time, there were only seven plus size designers, and the company I worked for represented them and took their clothing all across the country to sell it to boutiques and department stores. And even though that was amazing, we had a very limited budget. And so, with that, was like, we have to market these clothes, we have to show off these clothes. So, me and another model modeled them and photographed each other, and then we put the photos out there and didn't tell anyone who shot them. And everyone was like, who shot this? Who shot this? And we're like, oh, some photographer came and helped us. And it was us.
Yeah.
But that showed me that I really had a passion for photography that I kind of forgot about. And I like basically shot my whole yearbook.
Wow.
So got into photography again. And before I knew it, my first client was Wilhelmina. Started doing shooting for Wilhelmina and the other agencies in New York. Got to work with beautiful models like yourself, and then transitioned into scouting, and then eventually became an agent. And I became the head agent at Bicoastal Management in New York. And it was my desire to start a plus size print division at Bicoastal. And so I helped start the plus size print division that exists today, and now is in New York and LA. And they still represent me, and I still model to this day. And about 4 years ago, I started coaching models as well, but on the business of the industry. I felt like that was really lacking in education. There was a lot of education on walking and, portfolios and stuff, but there's not a whole lot of education on what happens when you're a signed model and how to really make sure that you make the most of that opportunity and build a career out of it. And so that's been my passion ever since.
But like even hearing your story, like I often like for people to share their path because I feel sometimes people feel like this just is this linear
Mm.
And where we can sometimes find ourselves maybe at 40, even 50, we see what other people have somewhat like accomplished, however, not realizing like this person has been doing this journey for some time, and it's been them evolving and learning along the way and finding what gaps are there. Because like
Mhm.
being able to know like, and even from our experience, I feel that people only thought being a model was just because you're pretty. And I tell people like, I have a lot of really beautiful friends that do not model. Being
Mhm.
pretty is not the core to it, and it's looking at it as if it's a business. Because if not, if you come off as if you're doing this as a hobby, unfortunately, the agents will pretty much get that and probably will impact you even being able to grow inside the industry because they can tell you're not taking it serious. Is that something that sometimes people have a misperception about when it come into the industry?
Yeah, I think tenacity is underrated. Like you have to
Mhm.
really be tenacious and go after what you want. Like this is the type of business where if you go after it more than you think you should, the odds
Yeah.
are you're going to start booking more.
Yeah.
If you sit back and wait, the odds are you're not going to work very often. And I think
Mhm.
one of the most common misconceptions is like, hey, I get scouted, I get signed, and now I'm doing national campaigns all the time. And it's like, no, and it's a rude awakening, for a lot
Mhm.
of models. We see it. We've seen it over the years where it's like, okay, I'm grinding, I'm grinding, I'm grinding. I'm signed to this agency, that agency, and nothing is happening.
Mhm.
And it's because you have to really take an entrepreneurial approach, step outside of yourself every now and then and survey like, okay, what am I doing and what can I do differently? And how do I approach this as an entrepreneur? Because when
Mhm.
you're a model, you're not just there to be a pretty face, you are literally your own business.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, a lot of the models that I work with, that's the shift. The shift is when they start approaching it as their business. And then you see way more bookings, booking dream clients, being busy all the time, lifestyle changes because they're going after what they want and not just waiting for it to come to them.
And I like that you shared it the way that you did. And for anyone that's listening, you're like, well, maybe I necessarily don't want to be a model. You can still apply this to anything that you're wanting to shift into. I was doing an interview with someone that's going to be on this podcast who talks about being perimenopausal and career changes. And it's very often that once women do get around, they deem it as the midlife crisis. And sometimes what it is that we are shifting hormonally. We're finding like what we're really passionate about or what we do agree with and what we don't agree with. And you may be listening to this like, oh, I don't necessarily want to be in the event, like in the modeling industry. You can still listen to what she's saying and how does this apply to if you're doing something that's a fragrance. I had a cousin who decided to do candles and things like that. You just creating candles doesn't mean that it's going to turn into something. So I do encourage those of you that are listening that you want to not just hear it from how does this apply as a model, but this is no different than any other business or thing you've been doing where people are like, oh, you make really good cookies, like you should really sell it. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to start making them. But that's not what gets them sold. Like your friends and family will buy it eventually, but that's not what's going to build like extreme wealth or to be able to build anything substantial. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that that would be good to at least share because I feel like with even what you shared with people not understanding, it's just not getting signed. It's not just saying I'm a model that actually brings in the bookings or even gets the the big contracts by no means.
Yeah, and you're so right, and it does apply to any business. It does apply to any career path that you really want to be successful on.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a zone of genius, and your zone of genius can be baking those cookies, and they could be the best
Yeah.
cookies in the world. But if you don't know how to market them, if you don't know who your target audience is, if you don't know what price points are, if you don't know what your cost is, like you're going to be struggling to make that work. And the
Yeah.
approach with modeling is very similar, where you get out there and you think, okay, I'm just going to take a bunch of really cute pictures and next thing I know, I'm going to be working all the time because I have an agent. Well, no, are you taking the right photos? Have you done the research? What type of model are you?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are really key to really going ahead and being successful at something. And even if you've done all those things, there's a point where you got to check back in, right? So
Yeah.
like I started modeling in my 20s. I'm in my 40s now. So at this point I have to look back and go, okay, what type of modeling is best suited for my age range now? You know,
Yeah.
where can I best put my time and effort? I'm not going to be going after the same jobs 27-year-old me would have went after. I'm going to be going after the jobs 47-year-old me is going after, because
Yeah.
that's going to open doors and align me more with the clients that are right for me.
And that's marketing. Like, I
Mhm.
think that people often only see like the external, and it doesn't matter what business. Like, I often have people that I work with in my business career that are in the event industry, and I'm like, people only want to focus on how pretty the event is, not how
Mm,
to run a business. So like, hearing with what you're sharing, like, I really hope people lean into the fact of like, how do I apply this to my passion? And
mhm,
maybe at this specific age, and I've been putting on the back burner, I want to do X, but we haven't taken the first step, or we've taken the first step of saying I'm going to do it, but we're not really taking the time to think of it from a business standpoint. I saw this really cool statistic that I said that it says that did you know that the plus size modeling industry has grown over 30% in the last 5 years? Yet plus size models still make up less than 2% of fashion campaigns, and there's so much room for things to change. And like, by you helping to educate people, that that one helps people get into the industry a lot more informed, so
mhm.
that when they do have that opportunity, that they probably are able to handle it a little bit better. Is that still what you're seeing that's occurring in our industry?
Which part of it? The fact that like there's not as many models working.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a perspective of being over 40 now. The perspective is, like,
Okay.
when you're a certain age, you start to be like, okay, things are shifting, right? The industry's
Mm,
shifting and things are opening up and we're progressing, and oh, we have Ashley Graham on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and oh, we got, really nice leather knee-high boots for plus now, and we got all these. And then for some reason, the older you get, you start to see the backslide, and
mm,
you're like, wait, I thought we were shifting, I thought we were improving, like what's going on?
yeah.
And I think that's the rude awakening of getting older sometimes, is like you think everything's getting better, but not necessarily, depending on like society.
Yes.
So yes, unfortunately I do see that backslide. And I also see, like, no shame on mid-size or any other size, but like if I'm shopping online, I got a fupa. I got some yum yums here, and I gotta see what
Yeah.
the clothes look like on all of that. And if the model doesn't have a belly to be seen, I don't know what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
I can guess based on things I own already, but like I might see something and think, oh, I might look good in that, and then I get it, and I'm like, wait, how did a tummy even fit in this? What is this?
Yeah.
So it helps. The whole point of this is to see what you're gonna look like, so you can buy the clothes.
Yeah.
And with an industry that a majority of American women are 16 now. What used to be a 12 and it was a 14. I think it's a 16 now.
Wow.
So a majority of American women are 16, but we're shopping on sites that have women who are 4, and we're trying to guess if it will look good on our bodies, and there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Um, and not to mention, when I first started, the price points for like custom plus size clothes were really high. Now there's a lot more wiggle room. Like you can get different price point clothing that actually had a plus size fit model try it on, that
Mm,
you could probably get a good fit for. But there still seems to be this disconnect as to like I should dress my body in a way that
yeah.
fits me. It's more like I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna lose weight. I don't want to invest. I don't dress. You feel good about you. The more you feel good about you, the better everything goes. You treat yourself differently.
Mm.
The more plus models will get to work because
Yes.
the clothes are selling. Like, let's just get to that point where it's not this anomaly.
Yeah. So with you seeing, as you've gotten older, and we've seen the representation change, we've seen how we're being represented as well, because I feel like years ago we were only seeing ourselves in like velour tracksuits and
Moo.
and
My
things that
first job,
really
my first jobs were moo. I mean,
Exactly. I was trying to figure out. I blanked on the word because I don't even have them. Moo You know what I mean? And so there's been this idea of how to dress our bodies. So with knowing there's been this shift and you've seen it, how it's felt like it's moved forward, but also it's been moving backwards. Like, what made you realize that you could use the experience you have to be able to help others with being able to navigate this industry?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, I think for me, I think it's beneficial that I come from a perspective where I've always been plus. There's not, even at my healthiest, fittest, most active, captain of the volleyball team self,
Mhm.
I still was a 14. Like
Yeah.
there was no point in my life where I couldn't identify with a body type that was considered outside of the beauty standard. And
Mhm.
so, because of that, once I started to be in an industry where the beauty standard was a big part of my life, I made it a point to really try to flood the industry with those images, with different beauty, with different standards. Like, because to me, everyone is beautiful. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
if you're a 5X or, a 12 or an 8. Like, it's really about how you love yourself, how you carry yourself, how you express yourself. And so for me, it was like, okay, let's show the world every version of that, because that then starts to shift everything. Because, then an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old girl looking at a magazine or online or whatever can see that there's nothing wrong with it, that it's beautiful just the way that it is. And whatever you decide to do with your body or how you accept it is up to you. But now you don't just have one ideal. Because I think,
Yeah.
I think you'd agree, we grew up with one standard of what we
Yeah.
thought was beautiful. And so, we had to overcome that. Now I feel like there's enough representation that we don't have to overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, one of the best things about being in the industry when at the years, which I think are kind of the impressionable times of our lives, essentially, is now that you actually grow in this confidence of who you are. Like, you have to be okay, one, being in the middle of a room and like having on bra and panties. So you're just like, whatever, like it looks different than yours. I don't care.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think I even understood modesty. I would be in the back in the set, and I'll be sitting in a chair with my bra and panties, and people like, "You want to cover up?" I'm like, sure,
Why?
whatever.
Why? I'm just gonna have to change in 2 seconds anyway.
Yeah, like, do I want to do all that?
Mm.
But the thing is I love that you are wanting for to help other people with finding like how to navigate this and how to have success in it. So I would be curious, like, from a now I have this idea, I want to help people. What was the first step you took to start sharing your knowledge and building the community that you have?
Mm. I think the pandemic helped a lot. Lockdown helped a lot.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, I feel like my whole career, especially when I started doing photography, I've always been helping. Like, I was still giving tips as far as like posing, movement angles. I was still giving people advice on, like, oh, you want to get signed, this is what you need, or let's take photos that are going to help with that process and build up your portfolio. So, like, it was always kind of there in the background of things. And I was told several times during the early days, like, oh, you should teach, or you should monetize, or you should coach. And I'd be like, I had this misconception of what that was like. And then right before the pandemic, I found my flow with my photography, as well as the model intensive boot camp, which is what I
Mhm.
started doing. Um, and I started, basically, the whole that program was cool because it was like, okay, I want to give you 2 hours. We're gonna have an hour like talk and then an hour photo shoot in the streets. Like, I don't care who sees you, what if they honk, I don't care. Like, you got to get in the vibe and be in your best self posing, So, and I was teaching them posing throughout as the shoot would go. And
Mhm.
then, everything shut down, and I had no choice but to be creative. And so
Yeah.
that's where virtual photo shoots started. And that's where I said, okay, well, I'm going to start having these workshops. And so the Modelpreneur kind of was born
Mhm.
virtually. And that's when I started having experts on and teaching people different things for the business aspect. And before I knew it, when I moved to Tulsa, I was like, okay, well, the industry that I'm used to in New York is not here the
Yeah.
same way. And so I have to be really smart about how I'm going to expand in Oklahoma. And
Mm.
so what I realized is I can coach. And so coaching became the goal. And from there, it just took off. And I think had I not been pushed out of my comfort zone, I may not have this product and this class now.
Right.
But I'm glad that I was, because it just showed me I can be innovative and creative.
It's funny because when I hear you walking through this process, I remember when you started doing the virtual photo shoots, and I remember like, how is she doing that? And then I remember you doing some behind the scenes. So it was giving, for those that have been watching, it was putting like little seeds to make people like, what is she doing? Hmm. And I think when that's important when someone's wanting to, even if there's not clarity of like transitioning into being an educator, like
Mhm.
it's about just sharing your journey, sharing how you're evolving so that you can truly be able to build the community organically as well as gradually instead of, I feel like some people go into, um, creating something now like, oh, I'm 40, I want to do something different, uh, is that I feel that they don't take people along the process, and
Mm.
because they don't take it over the process, they feel as if things aren't working because it doesn't happen overnight, but not understanding, just even from your share, this was something that had been in the works. It wasn't what it is today, but it was in the works because of your transparency with sharing. Is that something you would say was how another thing that really helped with people being an easier transition when you started to coach?
Yeah, I think the sharing element is a big part of it. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. Not everybody
Mhm.
wants to share their journey on social media, and everybody wants a following. I get that. I think it came pretty natural for me, and I've been fortunate enough to have had opportunities along my career that put me in the spotlight a little bit. So, like with modeling and then with TV. And so, because of those things, like I developed a following. And so, with that, I developed a trust and a reputation in the industry that I think has thankfully blessed me, so that when I do try something new, it's not like no. But although I will say I thrive on no. Like I thrive on people being like, I
Mm,
don't know that you can do that. Like, oh yeah, watch me. I will get it done. That happened with modeling. It happened with photography. I would tell like family and loved ones like, oh, I'm gonna be a photographer. And there would just be like this blank space and they'd be like, yeah, mm-hmm, okay. And then I do it.
yeah.
So I almost need that like doubt a little bit sometimes. But as
Mm,
far as like sharing and growing, it doesn't happen overnight. It is something where I think sometimes, like I said earlier with modeling, you have to kind of step back and have like a bird's eye view, take stock in where you've
yeah.
been and what you've learned and what you've done. As we get older, we get that advantage, we get that privilege of like, oh, I've had experiences. And those experiences gave me this wisdom, and this wisdom can be used in this way. And now I can grow and step into something that maybe I always wanted to do, but I wasn't ready for.
Yeah. So you said that a lot of people do naturally support you, but did you face any resistance when stepping into the role of now being an educator or a leader in your industry? And how did you handle it?
Good question. I think the only resistance I faced was internal. Like it was a lot of
Mm,
internal voices, because like I don't know if you had this experience early on, but I remember early on when people would say, "Oh, she's a photographer, but she's a model. She's also wants to be a photographer or a makeup artist," and there'd be this whole like, she can't do
yeah.
both. You remember? It was like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't also be a photographer.
Yeah.
Like you can't do both. Like God forbid. And it was this whole like stigma. And like
Mhm.
for a minute I kind of like internalized it and was like, oh man, maybe they're gonna think I'm shady if I'm doing both things. Or and so I got past that. And then when it came to the coaching, it was a lot of the same internal voice of like, wait, but I'm not giving up modeling.
Mhm.
But I've never seen us any models as competition. Not
Yeah.
because anyone's better than anyone else. I compete with myself. I think we all can rise, and I think as I rise, I help others rise.
Yeah.
I don't see it as like if I'm doing it, you can't do it. No, like the more I learn, the more I want to teach you. Like that's how I see it. So
Yeah.
I think it was getting past that, like what other people might think if I do
Mm.
both or if I do three things. And then I realized I've always been a joiner. I will join 10 things I love because I love it, and I will find a way to make it work. So this was a big part of like that realization too.
And I it's And I think too, like I said earlier, is because we started doing this at this impressionable time of our lives. So,
Mhm.
like seeing how people reacted and responded, you do take that type of stuff in. And I feel that those experiences did help us for where we are now as well, because like public speaking and all that kind of, we know how to turn it off and turn it on. Like,
Yeah.
who would have ever thought 20 years ago that you would be able to have the level of confidence
Yep.
because of those experiences that you've had? And when you mentioned even about imposter syndrome, because that was
Mhm.
one of the questions I even have, that I wanted to ask is like, did you ever feel imposter syndrome with stepping into the space? Did you ever feel any imposter syndrome with stepping in this space? And then how did you push past it? So
Mm. All day, every day, still. It's just, I don't think that goes away. All
does it
day, every
really?
day, still. Like even with confidence, like you can't help but wonder, okay, is am I doing this right? Are people really happy? Do they really like
Yeah.
it? Photography, any creative thing like that is that's an internal war all the time as an artist. Like there is
Yeah.
no point in my artistry that I'm like, I've made it, I've done it, I'm great. Like I'm always like, is that good? I hope they like it. Like you just
Yeah.
never know. All you can do is push forward. The more you push forward, the better you get, the more,
Hmm.
feedback you get. And it shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be an external validation.
Hmm.
But we all know that that is a big part of how we determine if we're doing something right or wrong.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't think it ever goes away.
And with it being external, the thing is that opinions are always going to be what they are.
Hmm.
And I think that that's sometimes what gets in the way of people even sharing. And many people can have really great expertise in whatever they do, but they do struggle with sharing it. But and you've mentioned that that's a form of imposter syndrome that you've had. But like, how did you overcome that fear, even with like, okay, I'm having this, I'm just still gonna do it and like YOLO, or how did you like start doing it and not and just ignoring the fears either internally or externally?
Yeah. So I think a big part of it is because I've been in this industry so long now.
Yeah.
I started to realize that like it doesn't matter how good you are, how perfect you are, whatever. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people who don't like what you do because of
Mm,
their own stuff. And so you just have to kind of quiet the noise. Ask yourself, are you enjoying it? If you're enjoying it, that's really all that matters because the people that will hire you, that will appreciate you, resonate with that joy. They resonate with what you're creating.
mm,
And then the people who don't just don't. And then, you can't please everybody. And so
yeah.
I've gotten to the point, especially I think this is also over 40 thing. You get to a point where you're just like, all right, either you like me or you don't, you like it or you don't. I cannot like
And
go
we
find
don't
somebody
care.
you like better. It's all right. Like I got other things to worry about. Like and that's what it becomes, right? It's like you can
Yeah.
only worry so much before you're just like, all right, it's been real.
Yeah. Like I am done. That's so very true. And so I believe you share mostly on Instagram and on TikTok, but
Yeah.
what are some platforms you use to be more effective with getting your messaging out about your pretty much your passion and what you're doing now?
Definitely Instagram, TikTok. Instagram is definitely my, sharing my coaching tips. It's sharing the business. It's sharing some of my life, but it's not everything, obviously. And I don't care what platform I'm on. I'm not sharing everything. Um,
Hmm.
TikTok for me is more like random thought of the day,
Yeah.
opinions on, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, or, meeting Diddy's bodyguard. That's like random stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's more of my personality. I feel like I get to really share more of what I don't get to share on Instagram on TikTok. So if you want to
Yeah.
like see like, me talking about random stuff, spirituality, paranormal, pop culture, yada yada, I will be on TikTok. And then if you want to learn about the industry a little bit more, I'm definitely Instagram is better for that.
Perfect, perfect. And I saw this one statistic that said that over 70% of entrepreneurs experience imposter syndrome at some point, especially when it goes into stepping into leadership or doing something that's outside of their comfort zone. And so you have used your past experiences to create this great program to help others with navigating and learning the business. But this is really going to be a movement to make a change so that people can have more success inside the industry. How do you define a movement in your own words?
Ooh, movement. Um, it's inspiration. It's doing something, allowing yourself to be the example, flaws and all, to inspire. And I think actually the more you are flawed, the more natural you are, the more you share, the more people will be inspired because they can see some of themselves in you. And I think
Mm,
that's a really big part of my journey is like, yeah, I'm not perfect. I've been through a lot
yeah.
and, going through a lot and then moving forward regardless. And then using the failures and the hard times and the heartbreak and all of that as motivation is a big part of the journey.
And I love how you actually just explained that, because even if someone's not looking at starting getting into, plus size modeling, whatever business or whatever idea that you're wanting to start, I feel like there's this pressure that can be like, I have to have it all together to share or
Mm-hmm.
to start. And it's not about being perfect. I feel this day and age, people are really looking to have more genuine connections with people. And so I love that how a movement can be what it is for you, but it can also can be a movement where someone that has a candle business, or
Mm-hmm.
even think about recently, Megan of Sussex, her Netflix show, regardless of how people feel about her or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like my aunt, who's already had Le Creuset pottery, like pots in her house, she went and bought a whole new set of
Wow.
8. And she's like, "Ooh, Jesse, you want to see my new?" And it's red and it's beautiful. Like, just because Megan decided to show up the way that is authentic for her or however she wanted to show up, now you
Mm-hmm.
have people on threads showing all different types of pottery from their brand. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's like, you have to be willing to share all of the parts
Mm-hmm.
of you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think by you being authentic, even with your own journey, you've been very authentic about your process. And that's what connects people. So even when people are listening to this, you don't have to be Megan, you don't have to be Nikki, you don't have to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Is you be you, show what you feel comfortable with showing, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
this stage thing when you're wanting to start this movement inside of it. So if it's just you starting out with your own candle business and you only can start out with small batches, just show. You
Mm-hmm.
never know, in 5 years, 3 years, 3 months, you can have doubled and tripled what you're able to produce. But if we're not allowing ourselves to show up and create our own movement and our own business and what we're passionate about, then we're
Mm-hmm.
robbing not only ourselves, but we're robbing the people that we can also impact.
I love that so much. Yes, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Um, so much of what you said resonates. Just going back to even like be you, because I think that a lot of times when people look for success, they try to model their career or their journey after someone else.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest mistake you can make because everyone's journey is different because we're all different. So you have
Yeah.
to really hone in on what makes you special, what makes you spark, and really like lean into it as opposed to like I'm going to model myself after Martha Stewart. No, Martha Stewart's Martha Stewart. It's been
Yeah.
done. Megan's Megan. It's been done. Like,
Yeah.
you as you is going to be the thing that is what's resonant for other people, and that's going to lead to your success. So I love that you said that. That is key. And then you said something else. I'm trying to remember because you just dropped so much freaking wisdom.
Thank you.
I'm like lost and off. But no, you nailed it. You really nailed exactly what it is, flaws and all. People want to be on the journey with you. They want to see your come up. You know what I mean? If
Mhm.
you look at some YouTube stars or TikTok stars and you go back to their very first video, if they're still up, it does not look like their newest video a year or two later,
Yeah.
or 20,000, 30,000 followers later. Like it evolves, and people like they like that. They like to
Yeah.
see. oh, okay, you started off with the ring light and now you got, box lights and, and spotlights and color
Yeah.
behind you and, all of that because that is something that, they feel like they've been there for and they feel like they know you because they grew with you.
I agree. Like even with doing this podcast, I'm like, oh, it would be nice to go to a podcast studio. It would but that would cause way more disruptions in my
Mhm,
schedule where I know I would not be consistent with it.
mhm,
So like I've had this approach within the movements of the different businesses and that I've done where if I stay true to why I'm doing it and add value while I'm doing it, that's way better than it having to look a certain way.
that part.
And I think that that's something that's really important for us to do. And so like I feel at different points of us starting a movement, and that's like it can be a business, it can be an ideology. There's like this one moment where in our that it's like, wow, this might actually be something amazing. So what's one powerful moment in your journey that showed you that this was bigger than your own career or bigger than you?
Ooh, ooh, okay. I think for me, it's every time I see the results that someone I've worked with gets. It's so much bigger than me. Like that is, I didn't put it this way. I could have gone many different roads in this industry. Like I could have taken the experience of being a booker and then started an agency and kind of went in a more traditional road in the industry. Um, but what I realized early on is that the joy that I get in what I do is helping others succeed in fulfilling their dreams. And while agents get to do that to a certain extent, I really enjoy the ground up, like being there with someone and really focusing that really specific attention on someone's success. With an agent, I don't think most people who are outside the industry understand that they are stretched very thin and they have to deal with a lot of people, and only some people get the time that they really can dedicate to them. As a
Mhm.
coach, I really get to choose and curate who I work with and really get to curate what I'm helping them with. And so, one of the first conversations I have with the models I work with is who are your dream clients? If there were no barriers, if there were no walls, if there were no glass ceiling, who are your dream clients? Who do you want to work for ideally? And we
Mhm.
create a list. And Jesse, you would be surprised how many of those models work for those dream clients at the end of our run together. It's not just more clients, it's not just more work, it's those specific brands that we sat down and talked about 90 days prior that they are booking. And that to me is is everything. That's why I do this. It's not about me, it's not about people even giving me credit because there's lots of wonderful ladies I work with that I barely even get credit from. It's not about that. It's about seeing them book those clients and live the life that they have dreamt about. And that to me is like, ah, ah.
It's amazing to see other people win, and
Yeah.
I can definitely understand that. And for someone that may be listening, they may be in a place of thinking like, okay, I'm passionate about this. I would love to do this. However, I feel some sort of way about monetizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever experience the hesitation on monetizing your passion when it comes to creating this new community?
Absolutely. And I think that is very natural. And I think it's even generational, like uh, I'm Gen X or Zennial. Let's say Zennial. It's a mixture between X and Millennial. So I'm like in that scope. But I think as I look at my Millennial friends and some of my Gen Z friends, there is a stigma on monetizing anything. It's very much like, I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to sell. I don't want to look like I'm trying to get over on anybody. And that is all honorable. I get that. But this is an energetic exchange world. Like we have to exchange for the energy we put out, we have to receive. Otherwise, you will always be drained and you'll always be behind and you'll always be struggling. And I don't do this to get rich because trust me, girl, I am not rich. I am
I
getting
get,
by. I'm happy. I'm rich in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
not necessarily financially. But I do make sure that there's an even energy exchange. That if I'm going to put out my knowledge, my wisdom, my experience, my connections, my all of that, like I have to receive so that I can maintain and continue to put out. And I think that is where the shift happened for me, is realizing, okay, I'm not exchanging money, I'm exchanging energy, and money just happens to be the physical representation of that energy.
And then two is like if there's not that exchange, then we're not able to do it long term. Like
Exactly.
it's you doing something on for volunteer
Hmm.
because it's something you're passionate about every now and then is a lot different than showing up repeatedly
Hmm.
and not charging because you have a relationship with money or a
Hmm.
story evolving money. And it's something important for those of us that may be in a position where we're like, I want to do this passion project. And sometimes this conversation is even occurring when someone's starting to get towards the 10-year mark of before they're planning on retiring per se. So that comes up. I mean, even with my partner, he's like, I want to find something I just want to do after I retire, but we have to be okay with charging for the things that we do after we retire,
Hmm. Hmm.
unless you're just going to be volunteering at random places. But if you're going to be clocking in like regular hours, you want to make sure that you're getting monetized so that you can still be able to do the things at quality that you want to do it at, and at the consistency that the people that you feel called to impact can also still feel that type of impact. And so
Yeah.
one of the things I did want to know is like with you, have you, well, you did kind of share like you first started to do like your core, like not a course, but your extensive training. And now we're just doing our coaching programs. Have you thought like, are you going to try to evolve that some more, or are we just going to really just drill in more on the coaching?
Ooh. I think I'm at a really interesting point in my career where um, all of the things, all of the seeds that I planted are starting to sprout, and I
Mm,
know, I know it might seem like, oh, starting to, they've been sprouting, but like equally. So the coaching sprouting, the modeling, getting back into modeling and working more commercial as a commercial model is really sprouting. And then my photography in Tulsa has really picked up a lot as well. So I'm kind of in a place where like I'm putting equal energy into all of them at different points. Um, and I'm very much trusting the universe in the sense of like, when one thing slows down, oddly enough, another thing really just picks up. And I really don't have to put a ton of effort into getting that thing. It kind of
mm,
is like, okay, coaching slow down right now. There's not a lot of, people signing up. Oh, guess what? Like these 10 people want shoots. Great. Oh,
mm,
guess what? You have to fly to Atlanta to do a shoot. Okay, great. So I'm kind of trusting that as long as I put in enough structure into the things I have so that when it does pick up again, I'm back in there again. So I'm in that space. With coaching, I've really tried to automate things a little bit more.
okay.
So a lot of my classes are recorded now. They're available on my Mighty Networks. And so if people go there and they want to learn, I don't have to be physically there all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm there if they need me, and I'll never not be there if they need me. And as I continue to pick up more modeling work, I'm sharing what I'm learning in that journey in this phase of my career, which I didn't have all this information before. I had
Yes.
it kind of from like a watching, but not necessarily doing perspective. And so, it's always feeding into and growing each thing. And that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the life I always dreamt of. So I'm really happy to be able to just like lean into that and not stress and push as hard as I used to.
Mm. And Mighty Network is a really great network too. It's really awesome. And again, I think it's all about just taking the time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I say learn, I'm not saying get stuck learning.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel that sometimes people get so stuck in, like, they don't realize that that's a way to prevent them from being in action. So they'll
Yes.
take all the time to like figure all the things out. And then now, they've lost the time of doing it and learning
Mm-hmm.
because they get
Mm-hmm.
so wrapped up in learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, I guess, even ties into the next question I had is like, what are some common mistakes do people make when they're trying to teach others in their specific industry? So, either from stories you've heard or even just your own journey, what are some common mistakes that you find that people make when they like, oh, I want to teach other people about what I do?
Yeah, don't take away their learning. Like it's not about like sometimes when you want to teach someone something, you get so excited that you do it for them. Like you
Mm,
start doing everything for them because you're like, I have to make sure that they have all the things and they know how to. but there is a strength and a wisdom that comes from taking the information and them applying it to their own thing. So, for instance, in my coaching, I'm giving you the tools. But if you don't apply the tools, you're not going to succeed. And just because I know people in the business doesn't mean I'm going to do it for you. Like, you have to take the effort that I give you for the information, and then put your effort into it and then make it happen. And I've seen, situations, and even I was, in the very beginning, it was almost kind of like feeling like I had to do it all for them. But no, that there's a pride that happens when people take that initiative and do it themselves. And also, that's how you know you have fire for it. If you're willing to take that information and fight for it and put in the work and make it happen, you have fire. My most successful clients, the most successful models that I've worked with, and we see them all the time, they're posting all the time. They're the ones going after the gigs. They're the ones sending their agents thank you every quarter. They're the ones, definitely updating their portfolio with the right kinds of images. They're the ones submitting themselves. And so that really to me is what it's about.
I love that. Yeah. Like, and I feel like when someone does first, like it is that inclination. Like if I help them, and here's the thing is you sharing is helping. Like this
Exactly.
podcast is me helping.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Exactly.
helping for people that may be on the fence about what they're going to do next, or they may
Mm-hmm.
be doing something but they're just unsure. Like this podcast is to help people, that specifically women that are over 40, like find where you may be having some challenge. And I have speakers, but here's the thing, listening to it and not doing anything, that is on your action.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Absolutely.
think
Take what we're
it's
saying,
so important.
people.
Yes, take and do it.
Inspired.
And so, as we start to wrap up, what's one of the biggest pieces of advice you like to give someone who wants to start their own movement?
Do it. Just do it. Go after it. Don't overthink it. Don't overplan it. Don't say once I have the right microphone, once I have the right, you know, equipment. Like who cares? Just start. Start somewhere. Even with like when I started photography years ago, it was like a Rebel XT Canon, like amateur camera. It wasn't like, I had to get the best camera lenses. Da, da, da. No, you got to start somewhere. You got to start and you got to start building your legs. And so
Mhm.
that way, when you get to a point of you can upgrade with confidence. And now you've got experience and knowledge and clientele and you can grow. But if you just sit there thinking about it for years and waiting until the right thing comes along, the right moment, the right opportunity, it's not going to happen. It's
Yeah.
not. And it's better to start somewhere and gain the knowledge and be ready than it is to sit and wonder what if. And what if is
Mm.
like nothing. I never want to experience what if. I do everything because I don't want to be 80 something years old on my deathbed going, oh, I wish I tried, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm doing all
No.
the things. Like, this is the time.
YOLO.
Yeah, exactly. Life is too short. I'm doing all the things.
I mean, I always tell my assistant who works with me, I tell her, I was like, I am very much so, I will get better as I do it.
Hmm.
I'm like, I am not going to ever get stuck in the place of I have to have it perfect. I'm like, because honestly, the person that you're trying to support, they don't even know what that is. They're just
Hmm.
going based off of you. So it's like you just keep getting better as you continue to grow and learn. And that's the best way, like
Yeah.
it's the only way to be. So
Yeah.
where can
Perfect.
people
Sorry. I was going to say,
find?
perfect is paralyzation. You will be paralyzed by perfection forever.
Yes. And the thing is like most people are always going to be just, I feel like most good hearted people are just going to be super impressed that you did something that was on your heart.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. And
Yeah.
invest in yourself. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like some of us need business coaches. Some of us need model coaches. Some of us need assistants. Some of
Yeah.
us need, an accountant. Lord knows I need an accountant. But know, you want to
Yeah.
work in your zone of genius. And so sometimes, your time is wasted learning how to do your books when you can get
Yeah.
somebody to do it for you. And then you could work in your zone of genius and really continue to excel. So it's okay as a business owner to say, I have to invest in my business
Mm-hmm.
and watch it grow.
Yes, 100%.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
where can people find you and learn about your journal and the
Yeah.
services in which you have.
Yeah, so I do have a modelpreneur journal. It's a journal planner. There is nothing like it on the market. There is no model journal that exists to really help a model with their day to day. So that is on Amazon. It's the modelpreneur journal. I am on Instagram at the Nikki Gomez, so you can't miss me. And I'm also on TikTok. I think it's the Nikki Gomez. I could be wrong. Hold on, I'll check real quick. But I
Mm.
am on TikTok. You can find me there. It might also be Modelpreneur. Let me double check. Modelpreneur Coach, the Modelpreneur Coach on TikTok. And I have a website, thenikkigomez.com. So lots of places to find me. Look for Modelpreneur on Mighty Networks as well. So yeah, that's where I am.
And I'll make sure to put all of her links in the show notes so then that way everyone will be able to get to that with ease and then also check out her journal. So it has been an amazing conversation and I hope that others have heard a great bout of inspiration so that they can look at either how if they've been one of those individuals like I really have been wanting to get into the industry or I did it and I want to get back in, that they can come to you for your coaching and your services, but also for those that may not be wanting to be in that, but they hear like, how did you use your past to be able to help people for their futures? And I just am super grateful for you sharing that today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always so fun just to even just chat with you and catch up. So I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Until the next episode, everybody, talk to y'all then.